Greetings, this is proofread, the Nostalgia Catholic, with another Isaac Asimov short story review. And this time we have a story named on the cover but not pictured. It is Galley Slave by Isaac Asimov. So, this is another robot story. And let's see what it says here. Anything on the contents? I think it just lists it here. Yeah, it's a novelette. There we are. Galley Slave by Isaac Asimov, starting on page 8. Now, having gone through this, read this as it appears here, and also as the story got collected into the rest of the robots, there doesn't appear to be any textual difference, or at least anything consequential that I was able to pick up. There is, of course, the little publisher's blurb on the first page, and some artwork. Not only the drawing here at the first page, but two more inside. And in fact, if you're looking carefully, you might observe that this appears to be a scene from a trial. As a matter of fact, I think it's a scene that leads pretty near a climax, because this lady here is obviously Susan Calvin, and this is the robot. It's described as very large. You can actually see this little thing on its chest. That's like a speaker grill. It doesn't have a mouth to talk. It talks with a speaker there in its chest. And I assume that perhaps this figure down here is maybe their defense attorney, because the robot company and Susan Calvin, the robot company, is on trial. The galley slave does, he inspects galleys. I mean, I know the phrase galley slave like those guys who row on a ship or something, but in this case, the galley slave is somebody who looks at the galleys of books, proofreads them, and finds all the little defects and inconsistencies, and apparently does a fairly good job. The only thing that they don't seem to do is look up resources, and of course they don't try to explain or justify the point. They're just simply looking at it as it is and saying, well, now this math equation will not be consistent with that one unless you change this plus sign to a minus sign, or it'll do stuff like that, which is actually pretty good. So, but for the most part, most of what it does is kind of what your normal spell checker would do, and there's sometimes your grammatical checker as well. So it's illustrated by these illustrations, by the way, are by Dick Francis. Don't know who that is, but he draws some very nice drawings. Okay, so what has happened is this robot was leased. They always lease their robots to a particular university, and it was made available to the professors for, well, among other things, being the one to review the galleys of the various proofs, galley proofs for books and maybe articles as written by professors. This is a serious university, and professors are expected to be published, and we're talking like peer-reviewed things and so forth. So you are writing important things there that they may not be big in terms of market sales in the vast majority of cases, but they are very good as textbooks for their scholarly resource material value and so forth. So anyway, there was, when they first brought them, this Alfred Lanning, who was one of the big guys in the robot company, really gave them quite a good reason why they should buy it, good reasons and so forth. And so they did, and they took it to the university board or senate or whatever they called it. And out of 14 people there, 13 voted in favor of accepting this robot. 1 voted against. Turns out the one who voted against is also the plaintiff against this robot, because at first he didn't use it. All these other professors were using it with no apparent problems. And then he decides to use it, and something somehow went quite astray. It actually takes a ways into the story. They're spending all the time kind of established. So what is the history of how they went over that? How did it get voted? So how is this? Now here's another shot. When Lanning is first introducing this robot, he says, well, check this book. And they're actually afraid. It's a valuable book, some chemistry book that's kind of rare and valuable. And it's like they're afraid that he's going to, what, see if you can break it in half or something? Oh no, he'll read it carefully. And that's what's happening in this next drawing. One of the Lanning is one of these sides. Alfred Lanning is one of them. And I think the other one is somebody at the university. Goodfellow. Looks like the first one. He was one of the 14 people voting on it. He was one of those who voted in favor. So, and he'll just look at the book. He'll just look at all the pages. Then he'll tell you what's in what page and what's wrong with each page, and he proceeds to do that. And you could tell this is the speaker grill on his chest. That's what that is, because he's so tall his head would be totally out of view. So he's reading the pages of the book. So then there's one more drawing we have. Now, the guy who's accusing him is named Ninheimer. And Ninheimer here, you see him, he's in the witness chair now. There's the judge, and there's the robot, and I don't know, maybe that's one of the attorneys or Lanning, or doesn't look like Susan Calvin. That could be her. I don't know. That's somebody that could be the attorney. Anyway, so this is a very climatic moment because just bringing the robot to the courtroom was a difficult thing, but it proved to be very integral to the case. And I'll just leave it at that because I don't want to give away any spoilers. It's, I think, a very good story. Of the robot stories, I would have to rate it as among the very strongest. It's a great story. And according to Asimov's own discussion, apparently his longest story that involves Susan Calvin. And Susan Calvin was also really working closely and well with the attorneys and the robots, and she knows what to do and figuring out the situation and how to do the right thing. And that'll, expose the problem, not harm the robot. And all this took a lot of careful doing, but she knew how to do it all. And it's kind of interesting. Well, let me give you a slight overview of what the Ninheimer is complaining about. He had written a book, and for the first time, he decided to let the book be proofread by this robot. And then, for some reason, he just decided to trust this robot and send it off to press. Then copies of the book come out, and people start complaining because apparently he misquoted them very seriously. And he claims, and this is kind of the interesting part, he claims that the robot did this. Let's see if I can find where it says this here. Claims that the robot was responding to the first law, and that, well, actually I'm going to try to find it now, but anyway, some of the quotes were distorted because if taken as they were, they could be harmful to some human beings here or there. You can't allow that. First law is kicking in. Well, let's just say the robotologists, Calvin and Lanning and any other people from the robot company, they know that's not how the first law works. It doesn't really understand what people are saying or what significance or consequence the things people say could have as far as how other human beings may be helped or harmed by what they say. So it's not going to have the first law suddenly digging in there and messing with scholastic quotes. I mean, if there's ever one thing you don't want to do if you're going to try to, put out your shingle as a scholar, and that is you don't mess with, scholastic quotes. You give them fully, carefully, completely, accurately, and you provide them with enough context to make sure that what the author is saying, you are not misapplying it. You see, you are capturing what the author wanted to say, and that is part of the basis of what you are saying. If you did corrupt that in some way, you see, that falsifies what the original author you were quoting said, and that author can and should rightly take serious offense at that. So he's accused of doing that. So how are they going to prove that? Well, I don't know. It also kind of ties in another way. We in here a certain book that this Professor Ninheimer had been working on for 8 years. It was finally ready to be published, and then it gets messed up in this way. Well, kind of makes me think of the way some stuff got messed up. Well, changed, bowdlerized, some actual improvements, but on the whole, some of the thrust of the story has changed. When not too long ago we had that I'm in Marsport without Hilda, at least the way it got collected in the 9 Tom Tomorrows. So this is so this is kind of about the same sort of thing. When you start changing the texts, that can get into interesting and sometimes very murky territory, especially when it's the text from somebody else that you are quoting, and you're not just paraphrasing it or looking for a clever phrase. You can say, well, somebody once said something like this, and while he was talking about something else, I find it appropriate to use here in this way. We all understand. You're not exactly requiring that the quote be exact or that it be used in a way that its original author would have intended. We understand that. We accept that. But when you say, well, yes, so-and-so said this, and on the basis of that, I therefore take that point and add to it that because of A, B, C. And this isn't what they said at all. Or maybe it's something they said, but out of a context that makes it quite clear that there's no way you could build onto it this other way for this other reason, or something like that. So that's why you want to look at stuff, in context. And it's also a good way to discern real scholarship from when people just provide all these quotes that sound so intimidating, but are not. Anyway, that's my comments on that. And I think it's, like I said, it's a really good read. It's kind of unusual to see a trial. Another case of people talking in a room, like so much they say about so much of the foundation. Well, that is, but courtroom drama is people talking in a room, and it's not a bad drama. I mean, it's almost like Perry Mason or something. It's really good. Anyway, I recommend it. It's a good story, and thanks for listening.